Okay, welcome everyone. Today we are going to be talking about how to use your summer to get accepted into your dream school. This is especially important if you are going to be a senior in high school because a lot of people leave their applications for the last minute, but it's really good to get ahead because it'll save you so much stress mainly, but also time. Um, and it'll increase your chances because you'll have a better and stronger application. All right, so first off, we want to introduce ourselves. Who are we, these people on the screen? So,
Exactly.
my name is Dyllen Nellis. I am a college application consultant and an undergraduate at Stanford University. I empower people to discover their sense of self and effectively communicate their personal values, experiences, and potential through well-crafted college essays. So I've edited over 800 essays and definitely through that identified all the common mistakes, the overused phrases, and the standout strategies that can honestly make or break an application. I offer a lot of different services and resources on my website, which is collegeessayadvice.com. I offer college essay editing, live consulting, educational videos on YouTube, and most valuable, a comprehensive online college essay course to craft a successful college essay. So my main aim is to unlock a future of possibilities for students of all socioeconomic backgrounds. All righty, and let's hear it from Janae.
Hey guys, my name's Janae. I'm originally from Wilmington, North Carolina, but I'm currently in Dallas, Texas. And I am an SAT and ACT coach and college consultant. And in short, I help students rapidly raise their scores so that they can get into their dream schools and find personal and academic success. And I'm so excited to be here with you. Oh my gosh, thank you. Someone really likes my photo. I appreciate it very much so. I actually took that in New York, in Brooklyn, for anyone who is currently in New York. At Stanford, I'm an MSME major, so I study management science and engineering. And I'm really excited to be able to teach you guys today. Super excited to meet you. Awesome. Oh my gosh, I love you guys. Okay.
Okay, so first, we're going to talk about the scoring method. This is can get a little scary, but it's interesting. So Harvard scoring method. This is actually a college admission scoring method used by not just Harvard, but it was adopted by the other Ivy Leagues and other top ranked colleges. For example, Stanford isn't technically an Ivy League, it's the West Coast Ivy League, but they still use a very similar scoring system. I know because I looked at my own admissions file. So in this, there are mainly 4 different categories that you are scored on. And you're scored on a scale of 1 to 6, 1 being the best and 6 being the worst. So there's academic, meaning your grades, standardized test scores, academic activities, and your high school rigor. Athletic, athletic activities, or if you're recruited, extracurricular activities, clubs, volunteer, summer programs, internships, work experience, passion projects, and then personal, which is a little interesting. People are like, what's personal? Well, personal is actually your personal qualities and your character, which is surprisingly actually really important in college admissions. And I think a lot of students might overlook that. Intellectual vitality, emotional intelligence, how interesting or unique you are, how well you are liked, your ability to overcome challenges, leadership, and other soft skills like that. So first there's athletic, which, it's for those who participate in athletic activities or are considered for recruitment. Pretty self-explanatory. Then there's extracurricular, which to score a 1, which is the best score you can get, you need activities that are unique or uncommon, activities that have a large sphere of influence, like state, national, or international. By the way, this is for the top schools and the top ranked ones. So I know a lot of these things might sound a little daunting, and it's not the case for all schools everywhere, but for the top ones, this is the case. This is what they're looking for. Having leadership positions in your activities. And this is something that's really interesting, but common activities like NHS or Key Club or Model UN won't necessarily help you stand out. And that is because that's something that a lot of students do. It's a very common thing to do. But passion projects can really help you stand out and simultaneously boost your personal score. Passion projects are like things that you do on your own, whether you start a nonprofit or write a book or make an app or start a business, or there's just a million different things that you can do yourself. And so those can definitely help. However, we understand if you're going into your senior year, that's kind of hard to start or change at this point, because it might seem like, oh, is it too late? Oh no, but beware, it is not too late to boost your ratings in these two categories: academics, scores, and personal, your essays. So this is what we're going to be focusing on mainly in this webinar today. So I'm going to let Janae take it away with academics.
Yes, for sure. I also saw people in the chat earlier saying that they were rising seniors, and with a frowny face. First off, that is not a frowny face. Congratulations, you've made it so far already. And we designed this presentation with you in mind. So if you're even younger, you have more time to implement these things. And if you're a rising senior, then you're right on track. And like Dyllen said, we're going to take questions at the end. So save them all up, and then we'll answer them in the chat and on live as well, which is also why you want to stay to the end so you can get your questions answered. But to look at the academic side of things, in order to score an academic 1, an applicant must have what they like to call summa potential, or near perfect scores in grades. And to break that down more so for you in terms of the SAT and ACT, which is what I specialize in, an academic 2 looks like a mid 1400s or higher on the SAT, or a 33 or higher on the ACT. That's typically why when we're talking about top schools, that's typically where you need to be for the SAT or the ACT in order to boost your chances when you're applying. An academic 3 is typically mid 1200s to low 1400s on the SAT, and a 29 through 32 on the ACT. And then an academic 4 or 5 is typically a low to mid 1200 score, so like a 1250, for example, and between a 26 to 29 on the ACT. And admissions officers call this marginal academic potential. Now, obviously, with COVID, things have changed a lot. So as Dyllen's going to show, as she hits the next slide, a lot of students are asking, do I even have to take the SAT or the ACT? And if you can, you should, and here is why. What we have seen consistently, study after study has shown that non-submitters are consistently admitted at lower rates. The graph that you'll see and the circle that I've highlighted here is the admit rate. In the blue are submitters. Those would be people who submit their SAT or ACT scores in an applicant pool, and then non-submitters in the yellow. And what you can see in this box plot here is that the median is significantly lower for non-submitters, right? So we see that it is going to benefit you no matter what to submit scores. The more quantitative evidence that you can provide admissions officers with, they're going to evaluate you off of that, and it's going to help your chances always. And so that's why today, we're also going to be going through how to strengthen the academic side of your application, in addition to the personal side, so that you can raise your scores and hopefully achieve some of the goal scores that you have so that you are good to go. And yes, I saw Angela just highlight a point that some colleges are test blind. It is very much so true, and schools have their own policies, which is why it's so important to research the ones that you're applying to. But unless every school you're applying to your senior year is test optional or test blind, which unfortunately we have no way of knowing, and especially have no way of knowing for our rising juniors, then you'd still need to take it. High SAT and ACT scores are also typically required for scholarships. Actually, the student that I'm going to talk about later on where this comes into play. Other students will always submit scores in your applicant pool. That's something that we can count on. And if you plan on having an internship like the one I'm at now in Dallas, Texas at BCG, they're going to ask for your SAT and ACT scores. It's actually one of the first things that I was asked when I applied. It was my resume and my SAT and ACT score. And it's like that until you're around 22 when you end up taking your graduate exam, which can be your MCAT or the GRE or whatever it is. So that's why it's so important that you want to submit something that you're proud of, and why we're talking about this today. And the same trend follows on the next slide as well. With underrepresented minorities, people like me as a Black woman, we consistently see this trend surfacing in admissions. And so that's why we're talking about it here today.
All right. So we know that, GPA and test scores can be the sole reason you are denied, because it's true in admissions, they will do a check at first and see whether you might make the benchmark scores. And sometimes if you don't, your application might get set aside. But once you make it in, the scores aren't the things that are necessarily going to set you apart, because college essays set you apart, because there will be students who have the same exact scores as you, the same clubs as you, like I was talking about before, the same sports as you. There will be students who are even better at you in all of those categories, but no one has the same story as you. No one has those really personal details about everything that you've gone through and your perspectives and your insights about the way that you think about them. So the personal side. Most students, like I've said before, really underestimate the importance of the personal category, but this year it is literally more important than it has ever been in the past. So your personal experiences, your values, and your insights can really set you apart from other applicants. And the number one driver of this personal rating is actually your personal statement and your supplemental essays. So your college essays, and also the letters of recommendation, the interview, the additional information section, and the new COVID-19 essay. So we're going to get into that a lot more later. I'm going to go a whole thing on how to write your college essays. But first, we just want to get some feels for how y'all doing. So how are you currently feeling about your college application? Have you started? Like, are you nervous? Are you excited? Are you confident?
Exactly. Let us know how it's
Drop
going
it
in the chat. We're actually going to stop sharing so that we can see your guys's beautiful faces and your responses as well. Also, I know it's a Sunday night, but okay, we're all hopefully under 25 here. So if you could show your faces, it makes this experience for us so much more special, because we love to see you around the world. I see some people just turned on their cameras. Thank you for that. And we can see you on the side of our screen. Okay. I see extremely nervous, scared.
A lot of overwhelmed, nervous,
overwhelmed,
anxious. But I see some people are confident. Some people are excited for their future and their potential, which is excellent.
Okay, awesome.
A lot of scared.
So, well, it
seems not be scared.
Seems like there's some negative energy in the chat. So what's fine is that we're gonna brighten it up. We're going to brighten it up. We're going to lift your spirits, and we're going to learn a lot today. So this part of our training is for students who want to learn how to rapidly raise their SAT or ACT scores without wasting time, so that you can attend your top school, so that you can submit what is going to be best for you in your application, no matter what schools you apply to or no matter what policies they have. You're going to leave with a 5-step plan that will help you create results in your life immediately. And I'm not just talking about for the SAT or ACT, but for everything. I help my students with everything. And the reason that I actually decided to go into SAT and ACT coaching was because I saw how much it just radiates into other aspects of our lives. So I'm going to pause for like 10 seconds for you guys to pull out pencil and paper, and then we're going to get started.
Or your notes on your computer, because I personally hate taking
notes with a pencil. Whatever you want to do.
I type everything.
Okay, so we're going to take it back. We're going to take it back to all the way when I was in your shoes. Like you, I always had big dreams, but I lacked a plan to get me there. And as a junior, rising senior, like most of you guys are on this call, I wrestled with the question, how can I get the best SAT or ACT score possible? Because I knew this was going to be key to my future success. And I was doing everything. I was doing what I like to call the hustle. And here's how I initially approached this question. I was doing all the things and I still wasn't seeing results. It's actually a picture of me. You guys know I love you because I would not share this picture of me otherwise. This is a picture of me my first time I visited Stanford as a rising senior. And I actually remember on my little tour, I was walking around and someone said, I really want to go here. but I don't think I can get in, Mom, because it's just like too hard for me. And I remember I was doing all the things. I was doing like Khan Academy, test prep book, practice exams, YouTube videos. And I just decided that I was going to figure out a way in order to make this a possibility for myself and then help other students in the future. And I was caught in this cycle of spending so much time studying that I lacked time for school and extracurricular activities. I played soccer at the time, and my lack of progress made me feel unmotivated, anxious, and alone. And I started doubting if I'd ever make it to my dream school like that kid who was also on my tour. So if anyone's feeling like that, put your hands up in the chat, drop some things. I know how you're feeling. My extra time was consumed by trying to figure out how to raise my score. So I spent a lot of time on YouTube. I spent a lot of time trying to read through test prep books and wandering the halls of Barnes and Noble and all of that stuff. But my progress was still slow because I didn't have a strategy. And all the things that I was doing were studying harder, but studying harder is not studying smarter. And so that's what we're going to figure out how to do today. And I built a process that allowed me to raise my score in less than 90 days. And it only takes 3 simple steps. I believe in simplicity. And so that's what we're learning today. And I can promise you guys, I literally went from, let me go back. Hold on. Let me go back. Okay, actually, we're not going back.
I think you're going forward. Yeah.
I know. I think I was going forward. Okay, we're good. I went from this girl here in my blue shirt at Stanford. This was around like June. And in less than 3 months, I was in a better position. And then by that time, November 1st, I was a Stanford admit. So I'd completely changed my life. And so that's what I'm going to be talking about today, going through these 3 simple steps. So this is how we're going to go from you winging it, maybe burnt out using time-wasting methods, to being an SAT and ACT expert with a quick strategic system. So if you're ready for that, I'm going to see your hands up in the chats. I'm going to make you engage, and I'm going to put a smile on your face. I love to see it. Absolutely. Ooh. Give me a heck yes in the chat, because if you're like me, I was ready to escape all of the methods where I was just wasting time and I was done with hustling. I wanted to be an expert. So let me know in the chat who you want to be, a hustler or an expert. If you're like me, I was wanting to be on the expert train. And let me tell you, it is such a great feeling to have confidence and clarity with what you're doing. So if you are one of those people that feels like you're really not feeling confident about your college applications, or you're struggling with the SAT, like I saw someone say, we're done with that today. We're finding a better way. So step number 1, we're going to start by committing to your goal and yourself. Before you do anything, you must commit to and honor your goal. And I love your guys' participation, but I'm going to ask you guys to put your hands down so I can see other people's beautiful faces. Thank you so much. Before you do anything, I want you to pull out a sticky note, write down your goal score and your goal schools, put it somewhere you're going to see it every day. I see people doing this right now on their cameras. Thank you so much, because this really does matter. Put on your mirror, put on your refrigerator, make it your lock screen, whatever you want to do, and then invest in the resources, services, and support you need to achieve that goal. So I always like to say, make it a non-negotiable. Like, circumstances don't matter. If it was like, this is my goal and I was really that committed, what would I do? No matter what was in front of me, what actions would I take in order to make this a reality? Your brain is going to give you answers, right? If we ask ourselves all the reasons why you can't go to your dream school, your brain will also give you answers, and those answers are going to suck, right? But if you ask yourself, what could I do today to get closer to the life that I want to have in 6 months or a year from now, then we're going to get some good answers. And from there, we're going to start with phase 1, which I like to call skill mastery. So if you're taking notes, phase 1 of raising your score is skill mastery, equipping yourself with a test toolbox. You need to master the skills on the SAT and ACT so that you know everything that is going to be tested on test day. You need a proven, thorough curriculum that's going to teach you every single SAT, ACT concept you need, so you can stop taking countless practice exams, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. And when you master skills, you're going to have more speed and confidence. The problem that most students have is that they haven't taken the time to rewatch and relearn the skills that they need in order to increase their pace. So if you feel like you're currently running out of time on the SAT or ACT, a lot of the times it's because you're lacking strategy with time management on the test, and you're also lacking mastery in the skills that are showing up on the test. Because when you actually have mastery, you'll know how to solve all problems on the SAT or ACT in under 30 seconds, like that. I work with my students to find the 30-second solution, which is something I preach in our program because it exists. And it exists once you can develop a level of mastery to help you get there. And so, speaking of which, I'm driving home the point of why we focus on skill mastery so heavily when it comes to improving your SAT or ACT score. I'm going to let Dyllen take on this true or false question.
Yeah, let's go, guys. Okay, get ready to pop in the chat. True or false, to score a 750 on SAT math, you can only miss 3 or 4 questions. Is it true or is it false? I feel like I need Jeopardy music, but
no. Okay, I'm seeing a bunch of trues. I'm also seeing a bunch of experts. Love that. Heck yes. Whoop whoop. We can, I know we're on recording, but you guys can also say hell yes, like it's okay. Like this isn't actually a classroom. True. Okay, I see 1 false. Okay, 760 only missed 3. Okay, great. Okay, so we're gonna go into this. This is true. Now, I want to say this is true with a grain of salt because every SAT or ACT test is graded on a different rubric, depending on the students who take it across the country. So as someone mentioned in the chat, there are different cases, but on a case-by-case basis, I want to drive this home. In order to get something like a 1500, which is obviously, like we talked about earlier, necessary for getting those high scores in the academic category at most of the top schools, you want to strive for mastery because on test day, the margin for error is slim. So what you can't do is just go in there and be like, you know what? I'm in calculus and I got a A+ in Algebra 1, even though I took it 5 years ago. And I'm going to go in there because I'm in calculus and I'm going to kill it. And I don't need to study at all, right? That's not going to happen. Because in reality, in order to get a score like that, you can only miss around 3 or 4 problems, right? Sometimes the rubric is even harder. Sometimes it's a bit slimmer, but it's always in between 3 to 5 questions. And the same for the ACT proportionally. And so this is why we have to master those skills, and taking test and test over again isn't going to help you do that, which I'll talk about also as we continue on. And like I said in that example that I just gave, many of you may be in calculus or pre-calculus and you're incredibly smart, but you're still struggling. And this is why, in order to master the SAT and ACT math section, you need to know exactly what you're going to be tested on, which means you can't just go in there and wing it. And you also need to master and relearn these concepts to perform well under time pressure. When was the last time someone actually in here did a systems of equations problem? Like around like most of you guys, right? I'm talking like shading shading underneath the lines. It was a long time ago. Okay, it was a long time ago. I know when I was in high school around a junior, when I was doing calculus, my brain was not in Algebra 1 mode. But in order to perform under time pressure, to solve the problem in 30 or 60 seconds, I sure did have to review a lot of that material. And so that's what we focus on. To give you a better idea of the way that SAT math or ACT math is structured, you have concepts in algebra, geometry, and trigonometry. This triangle is really, really helpful to write down for anyone who's watching. So take notes on this. Those concepts you need to refresh because for a lot of students, they are not what you're currently learning in school. And you add in time pressure over here, right? Where on the ACT, for example, you have around 60 seconds per question. On the SAT, the margin's a bit greater, but the concepts are more difficult. And you add in a weird structure with the way that they actually ask you the questions so that it's not like it is in school, where they're phrasing the questions in a way that confuses students. And you get a really, really difficult SAT or ACT math section, which is why some of you may be scoring poorly or running out of time or struggling to understand the problems. And it's not because you're not intelligent. right? Everyone's on if you're on this call, I know you're smart, right? Because you came to learn and you came to better your future. It's only because you lack the correct strategy, which leads me to phase 2, learning strategy from perfect scores and actually skipping over all of the time that it takes to do so. So after committing to your goal and mastering those skills, I help students learn the strategy that they need to save time on test day and give more confidence. It's the second thing I always work with on students. And when I teach strategy, I teach you strategy so that you can focus on one section at a time, so you can begin to notice patterns in the sections that you're taking, and you can easily track your progress. And when you're learning from the experts, you will make progress faster. This is what the cycle of success looks like, right? Time, mistakes, strategy, expertise, experience, and results. The point of this cycle is that developing expertise needed for the SAT and ACT can take a long time, right? You have to kind of get in this place right here where you may be stuck, where you put in a lot of time and you're still making mistakes. So you put in more time and you're making more mistakes, and you're putting in more time and you're making more mistakes. And that takes a while until finally you figure it out. Unfortunately, for some people, it takes years. We don't have that, right? For our rising seniors, we got a few months. So how different would it be if you were just able to come in on the other side and actually practice the right way and use experts to help you get to a place where you're not wasting so much time? Now, in addition to just showing you actually how to take the exam, I also help students learn the strategy of how they actually need to practice, because a lot of students are practicing wrong. And I'm so sorry to tell you this if you bought a prep book, but I tell students not to use prep books 90% of the time. And here is why. You have to practice how you play, and you have to use the right materials. So do not use textbook and prep book problems or random problems on the internet or random math problems. You want to use released SAT and ACT materials. And that's why, like, when I work with students, I literally give them access to like over 800 released practice problems. And we only have released materials in our programs. I don't ever teach with anything else, because it's like practicing on a field that is not the same dimension of a field that you're going to play on game day. I don't know if anyone played soccer. If anyone does, like, please, like, let me know in the chat. I played soccer for around 12 years or so. Okay. I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't that good, but I actually kind of want to see the chat. Okay. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I see what happened when I was playing soccer is that I would have practice, right? I'd have practice on a certain field, and then I'd always go to like a tournament, or I'd always go to play a game on another field, and it would be completely different. And I didn't know what to expect. I was out of my element, right? Because I'd practice one way, and then what I actually had to perform was completely different. That's what happens when you use questions that aren't written by College Board or ACT Incorporated, because the way that you can write a math question is very different. And although the Princeton Review has SAT and ACT prep books that will help you practice math concepts in general, the Princeton Review writes questions for the Princeton Review. The Princeton Review doesn't write questions for the SAT. The SAT writes questions for the SAT. So that's why you have to practice with released materials only in order to start practicing the right way. And you want to stop using passive learning and utilize active learning. So things like watching Khan Academy, which I saw someone say, watching YouTube, using prep books, reading blogs, these are all considered passive learning methods. And it puts your mind into passive mode, which is basically where you're watching, it's just washing over you, right? It's washing over you, and you're just going to the next video and the next video and the next video, right? But in order to succeed, you want to switch your brain into active mode, because the more you practice, the actual more neural connections you will form in your brain that will allow you to retain new knowledge. This is going to be essential. It's almost like if you watched a video on how to ride a bike for 12 hours, You watch some of the best videos. Like you watch people who like bike for a living, who are like the best bikers in the world, teach you how to ride a bike. And then you didn't go out there and ride a bike. And you were wondering sort of like what's going on. It's because you have to get on the bike and actually ride the bike to learn. This is the same for the SAT and ACT. You have to practice actively. You have to do problems. You have to do the hard things. You have to ask tutors. You have to understand why you're missing certain problems. You have to get in there and get nitty and gritty and actually learn actively in order to start seeing results. And so that leads us to our next true and false question. Dyllen, take it away.
All right. True or false? Taking practice exam after practice exam is the best way to study.
Okay, let's see the chat.
I did a lot of that.
False, 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 false. Okay, I'm going to tell you guys something. A, you're super smart. Second, I know. Chelsea even said false, and I know because this is what I've been doing. I love that. Mm-hmm. When I get on consults with students, a lot of the times I ask them what they've been doing, and they tell me that they've been taking so many practice exams. And that's why, like, they're like, I don't know what's going on. I want to tell you something. Taking countless practice exams is actually symptomatic of a larger issue. So let me know if this sounds like you. To Beiji and Chelsea, this is probably, you kind of admitted that this may be you, but you sit down and you take a practice exam for 4 hours, like freaking sucks. Okay, you finish, you feel drained, and then you score the exam and you go do something else because like who likes taking long practice exams anyways? Okay, let me know if this is you in the chat. Just say like, yes, that's me. She's talking about me. I feel targeted. And like exactly, like you think you improved, but you check your score and you didn't improve, and then you're just sad and you just want to go do something else because who likes to continue doing things that they suck at, right? And then you're like, you know what, like do I even want to do this at all? Like maybe I should just forget about it. No. That's where a lot of students are, right? I'm here to tell you that there's actually a quite simple fix, but I want to tell you what's going on first. You take an exam, and when you finish, you're too exhausted to deeply analyze the test. And then after you score and you recognize that your score is stagnant or it's not improved by that much, you realize you need more practice. So you study a bit more and you then take another exam. But what's happening is you're failing to analyze your mistakes and you're getting caught in this cycle. And what's happening is that actually taking practice exams over and over again aren't sustainable ways to study. You actually need to break your mistakes down so that you understand them. That's why when I work with students, the first thing we do is I teach them a 7-step evaluation process for all of their problems. And I'm quite anal about it in the most loving way possible. Because what happens is that when we don't understand our mistakes, truly understand our mistakes, we make them again. And it wastes time. It burns so much time. And so that's why I meet students who are taking a practice exam a week, which is like 4 hours a week, right? And I'm like, you don't need to be doing all that time. You could do like 30 minutes a day and get the same results, and honestly probably be happier because of it by using mini exercises that switch your brain into active learning mode, because that's more sustainable than taking a 4-hour-long practice exam, feeling terrible about it and not doing anything for 7 days because you felt terrible about it, right? Instead of actually having many exercises of targeted practice where that's sustainable so that you can have consistency, and then being able to actually evaluate your mistakes because you know an exact process, and then you're not making the same mistakes over and you're not wasting time, right? That's how we stop taking 4-hour-long practice exams, because no one has time for that. And finally, going on to phase 3 is 24/7 unlimited support. I always tell students, the thought I can do this all by myself is one of the most expensive thoughts in the world. The truth is, that thought cost me thousands of dollars at one point in my life before I let it go. And I always say it is so much more helpful for someone to have like for someone to be able to guide you through the problems that you're going through. This is actually a text exchange with me and a student, but it's like actually being able to text someone and ask them your questions, actually being able to understand why you missed a particular question, because why you missed a question may be different than why someone else missed a question. And then finally being able to work at your own pace and a pace that works for you. And so that's why we actually decided to completely revolutionize our program this year so that we gave students lifetime access and we were there forever. And that's because we decided that we just wanted to be able to support our students. And I saw that when students are able to get support, it takes things to the next level. Because I'm going to let Dyllen go into this one and then I'll elaborate.
True or false? The things holding you back from your goal score are also holding you back in other areas of your life.
Okay, this is a big one for me, guys, because when I had this revelation, I just decided to double down on the work that I do because I was like, this is literally this, I'm incredibly passionate about this. This is true. And I'm actually just going to pause here. This is true. And I want to explain why. The time management strategies that you have that may be holding you back from reaching your goal score are also holding you back from finding more spaciousness in other areas of your life. It's holding you back from starting that club. Like, actually, let me know in the chat what you would do with an extra 3 to 4 hours a week. I've had students find more time to play with their dogs. I've had students start clubs. I've had students like sleep, like actually give yourself a really good nap. I've had students like feel like they finally could spend more time with their family or friends. I know for me, when I was actually able to start, you know, having more time with the people that I loved and doing things that I enjoyed, I was happier. Also, when we're more confident versions of ourselves, we do things that we wouldn't have otherwise done. So if you're currently thinking, I'm a bad test taker, I'm bad at math because of your SAT or ACT score, if that were to change for you, right, what else would you be able to do? Like that thought, what else is it holding you back from doing? I was talking with someone earlier this week who thought she was a bad test taker, and we found that it was actually correlating into the way that she was stepping up in all areas of her life, right? Because when you feel like you're a bad test taker, you don't want to, you know, help someone else out in class. You don't want to start that club. You don't want to speak up in class. You don't want to join that extracurricular activity. So what would it look like if you had more time, more confidence, more clarity, more certainty? These are things that are radiating into all areas of your life. And so that is why it's so important to get the support that you need to correct them. And so that's why you can sort of think of my job to be a trainer for your brain, right? Just like we need trainers for our bodies to help push us and support us, I help students push their brain and support them in doing and achieving the goals that they have for themselves. We give you what you need so that you can achieve what you want in your own life and you can create the results that you desire, because that is one of the most important things you can ever do for yourself. Achieving my goals completely changed my life, which I'll talk about shortly, but it's seriously the biggest confidence booster in the world. So you will have questions, and that's why having one-on-one and lifetime support throughout this process will take you to the next level. Because when you have questions, you're going to want answers, right? And so you want to take the actions to support yourself throughout that process so that you can get your questions answered. Okay, so right now you may feel like this, but going through the steps that I just outlined before, you can be at the end of this system celebrating. So I want to see some celebration emojis in the chat if you can, or smiley faces or whatever. If you're like, I want to be over here on this right side, I'm so sick and tired of grimacing every single time I take a practice exam, let me know in the chat, because if so, we're on the right track, right? This is the way that you're going to move to a different place in your life with simplicity. And now I also want to know in the chat, if your dream school was no longer a possibility, but an inevitability, what would that mean for you? right? Would that mean more scholarships for you? How would that change your life? For me, my entire future changed. This is me 6 months after the picture in the blue that I showed you, where I got into Stanford. And this is me last time that I was on campus with my friends as a student, living the life that I had on my vision board in high school, right? Where I'm now a Stanford student, I'm halfway through my degree. And I've met so many phenomenal people around the world. I have so many opportunities that I wouldn't have. And I can help students like all of you on this call. And that warms my heart beyond words, right? So whatever it is for you, I want you to really think about what it would mean if you had more time, if you were able to go to your dream school, what opportunities that would open up for you in your life. And instead of thinking about that, it's like, oh, that would be nice one day, starting to think about that as being a done deal. Because I'm sure as much as you guys love the SAT and ACT, I'm sure you want to be done with this. And I completely understand why. And it's time to sort of like figure this out so that you can then move on to what Dyllen's going to talk about next, writing your essays and putting your best foot forward in the fall, right? Because when you figure this out during the summertime, you have more time in the fall to do what you need to do to write those phenomenal essays that are also going to help get you into school. So now I just want to tell you about two of my favorite clients, or clients who had wonderful transformations that I want to tell you about before we go ahead and move into what Dyllen's going to talk to you about next. Jocelyn raised her SAT score by a whopping 250 points after we worked together, and she's now attending her dream school early. She'll be in Chapel Hill in the fall, which I'm super excited for her. And Gabby also, let's see if Gabby's on here. If not, here she is. Okay. Gabby, I worked with Gabby in her senior fall. So for those who were like, oh my gosh, I'm too late. You're not too late. I talked with her like a month before school started. We worked together for like 30 days. She raised her ACT score by around 3 points. And I heard back from her this spring and she won $30,000 to $40,000 in merit scholarships. And she's attending her dream school for free in the fall. Like, best success story ever, right? And it all started because when she was a rising senior, she decided that she was going to take agency over her future and make her dreams a reality. And so now she's going to her dream school and she doesn't have to pay a thing, right? And she did that for her family and her parents and her future. And she completely transformed into a better version of herself throughout the process. And then we saw Jocelyn. Okay, so if you're on board, if you're like, I want to reach my goal score and become a smarter and more confident version of myself so that I am not just someone who wants to go to my dream school, but someone who belongs at my dream school, someone who has the skills to do that, I want to see a heck yeah in the chat. You're like, nah, then you're lame. If you're like, I'm kidding. But if you're like, heck yes, that's me. I want to see you in the chat. I love to see your guys' energy.
Oh,
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Of course, heck yes. I see so many of you guys. Awesome. We love a chat full of heck yes and celebration emojis. Okay, awesome. So if you know this is what you need, where you're like, I need the skills, I need the strategy, I need the support, I need the accountability, this is the system for me, like this is actually a process that I can follow, listen up. I help students quickly raise their scores to get into their dream school using this 3-step method. We use simplicity. We don't overcomplicate things. We just get results. And the community where it all happens is called the SAT ACT Success System. It's where I work with students, and it's actually our only program in my company now. We shut everything else down because we were like, this is the way our students get the most results in the most simple way, and we cut out all the drama. If you follow this process, you will create the results that you want in your life. You will have more confidence and you will raise your score and you will get accepted into more schools and win scholarships. It is simple. It's a simple system. You do what you have to do and you get the results that you want on the other side. And you don't overcomplicate things. You stick with the same 3 simple steps that I mentioned earlier, and you just rinse and repeat, and you surround yourself with the support that you need in order to do so. So I'm going to actually walk through sort of what the inside details of our program look like to cut down on questions at the end of Q&A. And I also get a lot of emails about it. So I'm going to answer those. You can take notes if you'd like. But basically, we work with students so that what feels impossible begins to feel easy and enjoyable. So you get unlimited tutoring on every skill tested on the SAT or ACT, so you can stop guessing and begin to master the test. You get strategy so that you're confident on test day, because your energy on test day influences your results. So you need testing strategy that's going to give you clarity and confidence, because if you walk in there and you're like, I don't really know how this is going to go, it's not exactly going to go the best, right? But if you walk in there and you're like, this is what I know how to do, I know the strategy that I need to be successful, and I'm going to be successful, you're going to have different results. And you get that strategy by working on it over the course of these next few months during the summer, which is a great time to do so. And then you also get an entire online school for life with over 40 hours of training, where I break down every skill that's tested on the SAT or ACT, from systems of equations to the unit circle, everything. And also with the live tutoring that we have every single week, you can also bring your school questions up to Calculus BC. So just like this, just like we're on Zoom, I meet with students 3 to 4 times a week. You can come for up to four hours of tutoring a week, honestly, if you wanted to. And you just come and you learn, and we work on whatever you need to work on until it's fixed. So I have students who join who have like a 34 in the ACT and they want to get a 36, and we work on the changes that they need until it works. And I have students who join who are like around a 1200 on the SAT, and we continue to work with them as long as they need. Because instead of it being like a limited tutoring package or limited class, where after a certain amount of time, you're done and it just runs out, instead, we continue to work with you until you don't need us anymore, right? And through that, we teach you college prep, scholarships, all of that, everything. And it's just like, we're here to party every single week with you until you don't need us anymore, until you're in college and you're in a completely different phase of your life. And with that, live tutoring every single week, multiple times a week, you also get access 24/7 to tutor that you can text on your phone. I literally have students texting me like during this webinar for their questions, where we work out SAT and ACT solutions and everything like that. So I see people in the chat so in love with that. Where can we join? I'm about to tell you. And yes, the relationship I have with my students, every single one of them in our program around the world, I cherish very much so. So if you'd like to enroll, this is what the course looks like. I'm going to send a link. You guys will actually get a link from me, so that you also have my email, so that we can stay friends and I can help you once Dyllen's done with her part of the training as well. But this is just a summary of everything that I talked about: unlimited tutoring, 24/7 support. And we give students lifetime access to the program because it's the last program you'll ever need. You don't have to ever repurchase tutoring because you have tutoring for the rest of high school. And we're here to help you with everything that's getting in the way of your success, which is why it's called the success system, because we deal with it everything from a holistic level. So the way that you enroll, applications are now open. You can actually scan this little scan me thing. We're going to leave this up here for 30 seconds as Dyllen prepares to come for her training. And for students to enroll within the next 48 hours, there's 100% money back guarantee. So it's risk-free. The way it works, you make a decision now. You could decide to commit to your goals for your future, and then you communicate that with whoever you need to. You apply for the program. The application takes less than 30 seconds. You can actually fill it out while Dyllen's getting ready to come on. And then after the application has been reviewed within the next 6 hours or so, you'll get a link with enrollment details and also a link to schedule a call with me if you'd like to discuss the program one-on-one and dive into it further, dive into the problems that you may be having in your particular situation. And it's just that simple, because I don't like to overcomplicate things. So like ever, as simple as possible. 3 steps, we work with you until you get the results that you want. So I'm going to leave this up for a second. You can scan that link and you'll also get access to that email that I mentioned that we'll send out, so that you have access to that as well. And I will answer any questions about the program at the end of our Q&A. So make sure that you stick around. You can write your little question down on a piece of paper. And someone actually said, is there a limited number of spots? There are not a limited number of spots. We opened the program up so that as many students can join as possible, and they always have lifetime access. It's actually why we redesigned the program. And the program isn't a set number of weeks because you have lifetime access. So once you join, you're a member for life. Okay, those are all the questions that I'm going to go over now. I am going to stop sharing my screen so that I can see your beautiful faces, and we're going to transition over to Dyllen to talk about college essays.
Alrighty. Okay, I lost my chat when I shared my screen. Here we go.
I low-key feel like when we like lose the chat, we look like our like college professors, like how they can't use Zoom. And
we are way more tech savvy than that.
We are more tech savvy than that, but I feel like everyone's had that professor that doesn't know what the heck they're doing on Zoom.
All right. Hey guys, it's me again. I know it's heading towards 6, but don't worry about that. If you can stay, please stay, because I'm about to get into some juicy stuff. We're going to be talking about college essays and how to write a successful one, because that's something that not a lot of people know how to do. Okay, so I know that you guys were saying in the chat, like, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed. I'm so nervous. Nervous was probably the number one response that I heard about the college application process. But like Janae was saying, it comes down to strategy. College applications may seem like a scary or stressful process, but if you get organized, you work smart, and you stay on track, you'll realize it's much more approachable than you may think. So I was just like you. I'm going to tell my origin story just like Janae did. This is me doing my homework in senior year. And so in 2018, I was super, super nervous, just like you guys, when it came to college applications, because even though like I was the top of my class in my high school, I had big dreams of getting into Stanford and USC and UCLA and all that stuff, but I had no idea now how. I couldn't afford a private college consultant, and I noticed a lack of resources and guidance at my Title I high school, because my college counselors and my teachers at my high school would just say, write your college essays. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, yes, I intend to do that, but how? And no one ever told me how. And so it was really up to me to take the initiative to figure out the strategy in order to achieve the dreams that I wanted to achieve. So this information, it's not taught in a lot of high schools, and it can literally make or break an application. So I love this meme, this dog. Don't let this be you. The thing is, even with my success, like, yes, I am going to Stanford now. I did get into all the schools that I applied to, but I was incredibly stressed throughout the process, like incredibly stressed. And I do not wish this upon any of you guys. So the reason why is because I spent so much time trying to figure out the strategy to get into my top schools. Like I said, like no one was telling me, no one was like, here's a guidebook of how to do everything. I was like having to search all over the internet and books and articles and everything. So I didn't have enough time to actually execute the strategies that I was learning. I was writing my Common App essay in like October, which is kind of late. It's pretty late. You should, if you're going to be a senior, you should start doing that now. But there's a strategy in how you should do that. So let me get into that. But first, I was very stressed. You don't have to be. All right. So my students have done it. I also work with students, and I also have a program as well. So my students have done it, and so can you. They've gotten into schools such as Stanford, UPenn, Cornell, UCLA, USC, Berkeley, Tufts, Dartmouth, you name it, many more. And they all follow this 6-step process. So we're going to go into each one of those right now. First of all, you need to understand what a college essay is before you actually start doing the work. So what are college essays? First of all, it's not your typical high school essay. You are not writing that like 5-paragraph like intro and with my thesis and here's our examples to support my thesis. No, it's not like that. It can sort of be like that if you're writing a thematically styled essay, because there's different structures of college essays, but most of the time it's not like that. And it's not a resume either. They already have your access to your activities and your awards. You don't need to brag a whole lot in your college essays. What college essays are a story. And this is something that's incredibly important. It's like first person nonfiction in a book or a short memoir. So what you really want to do is focus on a specific theme or experience or multiple experiences. There's different ways to do it. Usually a lot of students pick one and go the narrative route, which is what I did for pretty much all of my college essays. But the thing about that with the narrative is that you don't want to just share your entire life journey. I've edited 800 essays at this point. So I've seen a lot of students like, when I was born, and then I moved to this school, and then I moved to that school, and now it's like, okay, great, but that's not what they want to see. They want to know something deep and something personal. And so you want to give them a specific theme or a specific experience that you're going to focus. Don't try to focus on everything. So college essays are actually a window into your mind and soul. I know this sounds really deep, but it is that deep. Honestly, admissions officers want to understand who you are as a person. That's why I talked about earlier, character and personal qualities is literally a factor that they evaluate you on. They want to learn about your passions, your mindset, the way you see the world, and the way that you approach obstacles. So, what are the two key qualities that colleges look for? They look for many qualities, but here are two that I think are the most important. First, intellectual vitality, especially if you're doing a Stanford application. Stanford loves intellectual vitality. So what is that anyways? In a nutshell, it's how you take responsibility for your own education and engage in activities that you are extremely passionate about. They want to understand how your mind works. Literally, by reading your essay, they should see the gears in your brain turning. So this relates to curiosity and passion and taking initiative. Okay, so what's the second one? Emotional intelligence. This is where things go a little deep. It's the capability to recognize your own emotions and manage them effectively. This demonstrates self-awareness and your ability to analyze a situation and uncover underlying problems or hidden meanings. Kind of sounds like you're psychoanalyzing yourself. Kind of maybe sounds like therapy, but kind of is. You gotta be okay with getting vulnerable and emotional. It doesn't have to be super, super emotional or vulnerable, but the point here is they want to see you other than numbers on paper, right? Because you're already submitting activities, you're already submitting scores, blah, blah, blah. Great. What sets you apart? Your story, the way you think about things. So this is relating to self-reflection, maturity, and your mindset. Here's an interesting quote that I think is always spread around when talking about college essays. And this is something that my college counselor in my high school told me. If your friend finds your essay on the ground and it has no name on it, they should be able to tell that it's yours just by reading it. What does this mean? It means your essay needs to be personal and specific. A lot of students think, or I'll get into cliche topics in just a second, but a lot of students will stay super, super general. Yes, we all have similar stories and experiences, but we all have really personal details and personal ways in which we think about things that are excellent to share in your college essays. And so don't leave that stuff out. Get into those details, get into those specifics so that no one else could have written that essay. It needs to be yours in your work. All right, writing about a cliche topic. Let's get my perspective on this and then we'll ask Janae. So I believe, honestly, that pretty much any topic can be done if dealt with creativity, honesty, and your own unique perspective. So I would not recommend refraining from telling an incredibly impactful story from your life, even if the topic seems overdone. I consult with students all the time and they're like, this is something that's going on in my life. It happened. It's a huge experience that changed my entire life. But other people write about it. So should I not write about it? I'm like, no, hello. That defines you. They're telling me that it defines them. And I'm like, okay, well, if it defines you, then that's your story. That is your story. You can't be someone you're not, or leave out something that's like so pivotal to understanding you, because once again, they want to understand you. So you can tell that story, but what matters is the way in which you tell that story. So one way to personalize a common experience is by including very specific details and insights regarding your story that can only be applied to you. And, even with this said, depending on the topic, sometimes it may be better to stand out with a topic that is less overdone and more unique to you. But that's by case basis. Janae, did you have anything to add on to this?
Yeah, I'd actually love to see what people think is cliche in the chat. If you could think of like one thing that you've heard from, I don't know, reading like college blogs or like friends with like, don't write about that. That's cliche. I really would love to see.
Oh, oh yeah. I've heard all these.
Okay. So I see mission trips. I've always wanted to study sport injuries. Okay, yeah. So we'll take all of these, right? We'll take all of these ideas and then think about how for every single one of these, this could have been something that completely changed your life. Like whether it's unique or not, this completely changed your life. For me personally, I wrote there's a prompt for Stanford called like name something meaningful to you. And I wrote about a blanket that my grandmother had knitted me. My grandmother passed away when I was 2 years old, so I never really got to like know her, but she knitted me and how I like found out about her life through that blanket. And she passed away from cancer, and I like talked about that in my story. And I never for a minute ever questioned that it was cliche, because quite frankly, I didn't care. Like that was my grandma, that was my story, that was something that completely impacted me. For my common application essay, I wrote about my passion for education and how much I loved starting my business and how I did that. And I guarantee you there were 10,000 other students who also wrote about starting their business, but it was my story. And when you take ownership over your story and you tell it in a way where you're actually telling a story with so much passion and personality and personal details, the admissions officer will never question for a minute like, oh, this is just another story, because they're going to so clearly see how it impacted you and why it's important about you and why it's important for them to know this when it comes to knowing you. Right? So whether it's about like writing a sports essay or, going on a mission trip, if the mission trip completely changed your life and influenced what you wanted to do, write about it. But you can write about it in a way that's personal to you so that it's never cliche.
Right. All right. So another thing that you need to do is read example essays. A lot of students are like, I just don't know how to do that, like essay writing style. They read other essays, or they've like heard of it or read one. And there's a very like fun way of writing it, because college essays is honestly creative writing. It's not like writing a research paper or whatever. So you need to read example essays and read a lot of them if possible. I think successful example essays are a great way to understand the college essay writing style and identify the strategies that other students employed. So I actually have a college essay course that includes 24 successful essays written by admits of top-ranked universities. There's also my personal essays in there, which I do critique in there, because of course, as I've grown and learned so much more about college essay writing, there are things that I think I could have done to make them better. But yeah, so each essay is analyzed and color coded to break down the structure as well. Okay, the next thing you need to do is identify your core values. So you have to actually understand yourself before you can tell the college admissions officers, here, this is who I am, right? This is something that is so important. And I honestly went on a journey of self-discovery when I did my college essays. I literally created a whole system for my mental health and was like, there it is. I solved everything, which, now I've learned a lot more, but I learned a lot more about myself and who I am and what makes me, me. So ask yourself, like, how do you view the world? What matters to you? Why do you do the things that you do? What is that motivation? How do you deal with conflict or setbacks or hardships? What do you strongly believe? And what makes you you? So examples of values can be like authenticity, community, justice, patience, courage, acceptance, collaboration. There's a whole lot more in my college essay course that you can see and pull from. Here's the important thing though. Even though I always talk about, oh, your personal values, they want to understand who you are, blah, 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 your essay does not need to blatantly state your values. And it's actually better if they don't, because these values should be conveyed through the story and through these reflections. This is something that, like, once reading your story and how you thought about things and how you approach the problem, the college admissions officer will be like, wow, I can tell from reading that this person really cares about family and about making community in their neighborhood or their ethnic group, like anything like that. Like, the college admissions officer should be able to sense it rather than you saying, I value community, right? That sounds much more better if it comes across in a more natural way. So yeah, in my college essay course, I'll walk you through exactly how to do this. You'll be able to identify your own values and your personal experiences that best convey them. Number 3, this is one that I really care about. Structure your essay. I do not think that people should start writing their essays until they have structured them. And by structuring, I mean like outlining, writing down what's going to be in every single paragraph, just like bullet points, having that structure is so important, and it will save you so much time and stress. Emphasis on time and stress. Trust me, I went through it. Okay. So I just want to ask the chat or the audience, what is most likely to happen if you don't structure your essay? Anyone have any guesses? It won't connect or flow. Good one. Anyone else? What will happen? I don't structure the essay. I just start writing it. I think I have an idea for a topic, so I'm just going to start writing.
I think Jennifer said messy, and I'm going to second that. Like, very like Housewives of Atlanta messy, like messy.
Absolutely.
Messy.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh my God. You guys nailed it. All right. Here's what it is. A cry over the computer. Me. So your essay starts in one place and ends up somewhere completely different, because a lot of times students will think that they have an idea of where they want to go, but then they're like, oh, wait, actually, I want to go in this direction. Oh, wait, actually, and then it just starts. It's like, wait, what is the theme of your essay? So you place maybe too much emphasis on some parts. Usually people spend way too much time on the backstory and not enough emphasis on others. Usually people don't spend enough time on talking about their reflections and what they learned from the experience. Your essay is no longer thematically tied. The admissions officer is lost and does not finish the essay with a main takeaway. And what are you doing? You're wasting your precious time. Trust me, I went through it. Here's a picture of me that I posted on my Instagram story in the senior year. I was like, the writing never stops, because I literally, I was just sitting at my desk for way too many hours trying to write my college essays. I spent so much time attempting an essay, realizing it was crap, doing more research on college essay writing, starting over, and doing that whole cycle all over again. So I don't want you to waste your time scrapping a million poor drafts. I want you to get it right the first time. Of course, you're going to go through several revisions and do several drafts, but it's better than completely starting over every single time. All right. It's all about the way in which you write it. So many students have great stories to tell, but they just don't know how to communicate them in the best way. So there are mainly 2 college essay structures that I've compiled a bunch of insights from, like College Essay Guy, Essay Hell. Oh gosh, I'm trying to remember all of them, like all the essay articles, all the experts. I have studied them. I've seen what works. I have gone through it myself. I've worked with other students and identified that narrative and thematic structures are what works. And practically every successful college essay uses one of these structures, even if they do so unintentionally. And I break down exactly how to do those structures in my college essay course, which I'll talk about a little later. Okay, the next thing you need to do is trash write the whole essay. this is another huge time saver, huge time saver. So what do I mean by trash write? That sounds ugly. Well, just write the entire essay through, following the structure, following your outline. Just turn those bullet points into sentences and paragraphs. And do not stop to perfect each sentence and each paragraph before moving on to the next. Because if you do so, you might later realize that your structure is off and you'll need to adjust things. And then once again, you're completely rewriting the essay. A huge time suck. I spent so much time doing this. I was like, yeah, I know exactly what I'm going to write about. I know the structure, like I got it down. And so I would perfect. I would get all the wording beautiful in the first paragraph. Now I'd move on to the next one. Then I was like, wait, no, this isn't working. I need to adjust some things. So right now, it's just getting those puzzle pieces in place. Don't worry about sounding super nice, super eloquent just yet. The focus is solidifying the structure rather than, like I said, the word choice and the eloquence. Yeah, so let's move on to now the fifth step, which is craft a first draft. This is after you have gotten structure down, after you have trash written your whole essay, not the first step. A lot of people think this is the first step. They're like, oh, I have a topic. Great. I'm just going to write. Sometimes it'll work, but most of the time, if you want to save yourself time and want to do it the strategic way, do it this way. So then this is when you want to start employing strategies such as show, don't tell, or wrapping your story in a metaphor, or drawing connections between ideas, swapping out overused phrases, condensing or combining sentences, having an intention behind every sentence. There's a lot more strategies that I talk about in my college essay course, which will cover how to write the opening anecdote and the closing sentences, because that's what helps you make your essay thematically tied. And it's just really satisfying when the last sentence or something in the last paragraph refers to something you talked about in the beginning. There's techniques to improve your writing just in general, like writing and vocab and grammar and sentence structure that you may have not learned in high school. Specific storytelling strategies, once again, goes to the structure and how you outline the essay. And the ultimate list of overused phrases. After editing 800 plus essays, I see the same words, the same phrases being used over and over and over again. And I just started compiling a list. I was like, you guys need to know to not use these, or maybe to refrain from using them, because this changed my life. Yeah. Or, oh gosh, can I think of one off the top of my head? Well, for YS essays, there's a lot. Like, this school is the perfect school for me. There's a lot more that I'm not even remembering off the top of my head, but it's in there. Okay, the last step is to revise and finalize. So this is something that's super important as well. Your first draft is not your final draft. They are not the same thing. Your essay should undergo several rounds of revision, and the revision process can last days, weeks, or even months. This is why it's so important to start early. And you need to make copies of your drafts as well. I think that's a handy thing to do. I did that plenty of times. I just copy and pasted my whole essay every time right before I was about to make major changes. And this is good so you have different versions to refer back to and take words and phrases from. Because a lot of times I would cut certain parts and then I was like, actually, wait, I kind of want to say that thing again. And then I can look back at my previous draft, see, oh, this is that nicely crafted sentence I made, and put that back in. Janae, how did you feel about this process, the revision process?
Yeah, I think I wrote my Common App essay around the time that you all are in right now, summer before my senior year. And I continued to revise that essay up until Halloween. I think actually the night before I submitted my Stanford application, I was fighting with my dad over a few semicolons. So that tells you seriously how much you will have time to revise and finalize these essays, and how much time you want to give yourselves, which is why it's so important that we're starting now, right? By showing up here today, you're showing and committing yourself that you're ready. You're ready to start this process, that you have everything that you need. We've showed you what you need today to go ahead and go through and do it, right? So the first step is just taking action, messy, imperfect action, and then giving yourself time to revise and finalize over the coming months as you learn and grow more. because you'll go through multiple versions of yourself, even in just a short few months, which is what's so beautiful about the college application process. And as you're doing that, you want to give yourself time to edit your personal statement as many times as you need.
Absolutely. Okay. Another thing in the revision process is it's not necessarily just you who's doing the revising or giving the feedback, shall I say. You should have someone you trust to provide feedback on your essay as well. And some people ask me, oh, should it be someone I know or doesn't know me personally? And I say ideally both, but if you had to choose one, someone who does not know you personally. I'll get into that in just a sec. So first, someone who you do know, like your parent, might be able to provide insight on admirable qualities that you have or parts of your story that you left out, or of course, maybe just like simple word things like Janae was saying. I definitely worked on stuff with my dad with that. But you want to make sure that your essay is still in your voice. A lot of times when you have like family members or people who like are really trying to make you have a great essay, they'll want to change a lot of the stuff themselves. And you may not necessarily agree with some of the changes that they want to make. So here's my thing. Don't let someone else change it to the point where it no longer feels authentic. Remember, this is your essay, this is your application, your future, and it needs to be in your voice ultimately. But sometimes their suggestions may be good. So you can decide for yourself whether you want to take it or not. Now, I think it's most important to have someone who does not know you personally read over your essay and provide feedback. Why? Because if you think about it, the admissions officers will not know you either. They will know nothing about you when they see your application. They haven't gone to parties with you, hung out with you, had dinner, all that stuff. So an essay editor you don't know is starting from a clean slate. They don't know your background. They don't know your personality. They don't know your values. So their feedback will give you an idea of how your words come across and how your story is understood by an outsider. This is what I do when I edit essays. And it's very interesting because sometimes I'm like, I think what you're trying to say, but I don't know if it's hitting the right point, or I don't know if it's necessarily like doing the thing that you want it to do. And sometimes I'm just flat out confused, like there's a lot of clarity issues. And I'm like, wait, but what happened with the story? Like how does this connect to that? So I can help you guys with your essays and fill in those gaps. And once you have revised your essay until your gut tells you it's ready to go, you've done your revisions, all that stuff, you've got a final draft. Woo! And once you get a final draft, there's a really cool thing you can do, which is repurpose the same essay to fit other essay prompts. Yes, you can do that. It is totally fine to do that. Totally fine to reuse essays across schools. I turned my Common App essay into a UCPIQ. I turned one of my UCPIQs into a Stanford supplemental essay. I used the same supplemental essay for USC and Stanford. As long as the same school is not getting two of the same essay, which is don't make that mistake, then it's okay to do. You just have to make sure that it fits the prompt. It needs to still match the prompt, because if you're like answering something that like they weren't asking for, they're gonna see that and be like, oh, they're just reusing an essay. They're not really prioritizing me as a school. I don't want to admit them. Don't want that to happen, right? Okay. So I want you guys to know that there is a way to complete your college applications without all this excess stress, all that nervousness, all that stuff. It doesn't need to be as extreme as it might be if you wait, or as it is right now. So I have a college essay course called The Ultimate Guide to Craft Your Story, and it's been proven to reduce stress, increase confidence, and guide you on a journey towards self-discovery, as I was talking about with my own journey of self-discovery, which is pretty incredible. So what if, imagine this, if writing college essays was easy and fun? I know you're probably like, what? How could it be fun? How could it be easy? This seems like the hardest thing to do in my life. It's not. It doesn't have to be. I thought it was fun, honestly. So these are some other students that have gone through my course, and this is what they said. So this person Jolie, who got into Texas A&M, said that she was worried about the college application process, just like you guys, just like I was, because she had no idea how to write a college essay, then enrolled in the course, and it helped so much, made organizing and brainstorming essays so easy. Literally, not my words, it was her words. She loved the words of encouragement and humor throughout the course, and it felt really personal. Yeah, I mean, that's just the thing about me too. I have humor in my course as I have humor in the way that I normally speak and act and hold myself. So I want this course to be fun and engaging, not just here's a bunch of instructions, do it, not like that. So it helped her get into all 6 schools that she applied to, which is pretty cool. And Riza, if I'm pronouncing her name right, got into UC Berkeley, said it was a huge lifesaver, made her excited to work on the application, allowed her to have fun and be creative during a time that tends to be filled with stress over college applications. Every lecture was written out was super helpful and constructive, and it was worth it. And what if you could submit with confidence and pride? I am all for confidence and all for pride. So someone else, Carla, got into USC, and at first, everyone seems to have the same thing at first, stressed. She thought her thoughts were scattered all over the place with online advice scattered everywhere, which is definitely what I went through. I was like, there's so much content on the internet. Like, I can't sift through all this. It takes too much time. Everyone's saying different things. But I formatted it in a way that's a step-by-step process. So it turned her college application process into something more than just a stressful situation. And the writing tips paid off. She got into USC, did not expect to get into USC. And of course, that increased her self-confidence. And then lastly, we have Uriel, who also went to USC, and he was a presidential scholar. He learned to add structure to the process, identify what he needed to work on, said it was amazing, helped him organize his ideas, helped him tell his story and be proud of his own writing. Pride is something that I think is also really lovely to have. I remember once I submitted my applications, I took a step back and I was like, wow, I did that. I achieved something. And I'm actually proud of the work that I did. And I also learned how to write throughout that entire thing because I didn't have much writing practice in high school. But this really challenged me to grow as a writer and as a person. And I think that was life-changing. Whether I got into the schools or not, that itself was life-changing and played into the ways that I carry myself and act in my daily life. So, what if you were guided through every type of college essay, not just the Common App, every type? So, the ultimate guide to craft your story is my college essay course. It's 2 parts. It's an online course and an interactive workbook on Google Slides where you can fill out worksheets and develop, structure, and strategize a successful college essay. So it's a strategic, like I said, step-by-step process to help students convey their personal values, experiences, and potential through highly competitive college admissions essays. You will not find this much value in any of my other resources. I know a lot of you guys are coming from YouTube or my email list or whatever. I do have some stuff on there, absolutely, but nothing is quite like this in the strategic, orderly, organized way that this is. So in this course, you'll gain a solid understanding of storytelling strategies that apply to all college essays. You'll be able to identify the differences between the Common App essay and the UCPIQs. You will showcase the best qualities of yourself to each school, and you'll be armed with the essential tools to successfully craft the Why Us supplemental essay, which, oh my goodness, this is honestly one of the trickiest essays to get right. It's the one that's like, why do you want to go to our school? Because a lot of people fall into the cliches and you want to stand out. You want to make them want to admit you. So the ultimate guide to craft your story will teach you how to strategically take notes while researching the colleges, and then, cool thing, transform those specific notes into the actual outline of your essay. That's simple. That simple. So what does this course actually include? 13 chapters of both written and video content, an interactive digital workbook with 15 worksheets on Google Slides to map out your ideas, 24 successful college essay examples, which will soon be 25 because I asked Janae this morning if I could include one of her essays, which is phenomenal.
Yes, my essay about pancakes is going in the course. And if you're like,
so
why
good.
the heck did Janae write about pancakes? Join the course.
It was so good. So creative, Janae. Brainstorming and idea mapping techniques, college essay structures and storytelling strategies. I break down the structures that I was talking about with narrative and thematic. Of course, the ultimate list of overused phrases, common mistakes, and how to fix them. So it's a streamlined hub of information based on my personal experience of getting accepted into Stanford, USC, UCLA, NYU, and many more. My 3 years of research, I've been working on this for quite some time. I've read books, articles, and videos. I've continued to research the college application process well after I was admitted, because of course I didn't know everything when I was admitted to school. I didn't know how exactly I got in. Now I have a much clearer idea. And working with students, I've worked with hundreds of students around the globe, edited 800 plus college essays, made around 50 college application YouTube videos, and spent this entire gap year working on this and consulting over Zoom. So I went to Stanford for my freshman year, and now I just decided I'm going to take a gap year during COVID, and this is what I focused my time and energy on. So I can guarantee you that this is good stuff. So the ultimate guide to craft your story is only $79 one-time purchase. And when you purchase this course, you also automatically provide one to a first generation and low income student. And you will receive a thank you email with the name of the FGLI student that you helped. So there's no more feeling lost, no more scrapping those countless poor drafts, no more wasting your time. Please don't do the mistakes that I did. And oh yeah. And let me teach you how to build a solid foundation and refine your essay from the ground up. All right. So, I forgot. I have one more thing to say. If you want your essay edited, this is a separate service that I do offer as well. I do college essay editing. I will edit your essay after you have gone through that process, and crafted a first draft or second draft, whatever. I actually have a team of editors now who are all super eager to help you. They all come from wonderful schools, and I actually worked with a lot of them myself. And we'll help you with storytelling, cohesion, clarity, phrasing, and grammar, and flow, and give a lot of really thorough feedback on your essays, comments, suggestions, and an overall note at the very end with what you did well and how you can improve. There we go. And now, if you want to access any of these programs, here are the links.
So you guys can scan the QR codes that we've listed with your phone. All you have to do is hold it up to the phone. But I've already seen applications for the success system come in, so you guys seem to know how to use a QR code. I hope you do. We're all Gen Zs. We're now just gonna probably leave this up for Q&A. I do want to say, so from our end, the chat moves really quickly, and we also get like private DMs and the regular chat whenever we do webinars. So if you all could send your questions in the chat again, we can then answer those live. As far as the pricing info for the SAT and ACT success system, I want to address that correctly. After you apply, you will receive an email within a few hours after your application is reviewed with all of the enrollment and pricing information. So it's sent out in an email to you so that there's like no questions at all after you apply. So go ahead and apply, and then you'll receive an email shortly after. Obviously, there's a few applications that we have to review, but I just want to address that so that that doesn't come up in the chat. Okay, from there, we're going to try to moderate the chat with all of the questions that are coming up. Okay.
I'll quickly jump in just really quick with one. I see, is it ever too late to start an activity? I don't think so. I started a math club in my senior year of high school because I saw a need. I was like, these kids need help with math. I'm going to help them with math. And so I did that, and you can do that. I don't think it's too late to start an activity. So if you can.
I also want to encourage, if anyone wants to, we'll like rapid fire in the chat, but if anyone wants to come off mute and actually ask their question, just raise your hand with the emoji and we can call on you to unmute. But I'm going to try and start in chronological order. Oh, I also had a student DM me a question. I don't know if their laptop died, but they said that their laptop may die. But the question was if it matters of out of school activities versus in school activities for extracurricular activities, and if there should be a balance. I think this is a really great question in terms of in school activities. I think there's a lot of value there of engaging your school community. And there's also a lot of academic clubs and groups that you can take advantage of. But when it comes to out group activities, like out of school activities, although you can say the same, most of the time I've found that outside of school activities are a lot more creative and sometimes more passion oriented. And so if it's in the case of like a matter of, for example, like my business, I started outside of school, but I was involved in school clubs that were inside of school. And a balance of both helped me have extracurriculars on my application that I was passionate about or that were maybe like service oriented, but I had the same in school. So I would say rather than balancing like or trying to focus on physically where that extracurricular is, whether it's in or outside of school, focus on finding ways to balance like creativity, ingenuity, and leadership. So if you have a traditional academic club, can you find a way to have an extracurricular that maybe shows your creative side or intertwines with one of your passions more? Whether that's in or outside of school is up to you, but that's what I would prioritize. Okay. Helpful leadership position in a common extracurricular. What if you have? If someone wants to come off mute to talk about that question more in detail, but to me, that sounds fine. I think if it's a common extracurricular, obviously they're going to probably recognize what the club may be, like for if it was like National Honor Society or something. But I think talking about how you had a unique impact in that role is what's going to be more important. If you can articulate what you did that was special, that's different from all the people who have ever done like National Honor Society, then that's what's going to help stand out. So I think in whatever role you are in, knowing exactly what your impact is, like what you are doing, not what the club's doing, but what you are doing in that club, in that position, once you know that and you're very certain, you can articulate it in a more powerful way.
Can I quickly answer some questions about my service offerings?
Yeah.
Okay, so I see several questions. So I want to clarify like what the difference is between the course, the essay editing, consulting. Very good question. They are three different things. The course is an asynchronous course, meaning you are not meeting at any times or anything. It's literally just a full guide, step-by-step guide of how to do everything for every college essay. And you can take as much time as you need for that and work at it at your own pace. And it's just all the information is there. It does not come with essay editing. That is a separate service, which you are more than welcome to do as well. So then there's essay editing, which is where you submit an essay on the form on my website and then choose which editor you would like to have. And then within 5 days or 1 day, if you ordered a rush order, then you will get your essay back and the essay will be fully, it will have comments, suggestions, and the overall note with feedback. And then consulting is if you want to meet with me one-on-one on Zoom, so like live meeting, then that is an option as well. What is the pricing on essay editing? It's all on my website, which you can check out. I've linked in the chat as well. Am I missing anything? Oh, and I'll quickly answer, what did you mean by a thematic essay? So yeah, super good question. It's when your essay focuses on a theme rather than like one specific story. So I think one of the essays in my college essay course is written by my friend Brendan. Janae knows Brendan. Anyways, he wrote his Common App essay on using art as communication. So like that was the theme, but the stories, the actual content of pieces of his life where he talked about these different things, there were like 3 different stories or 2.5, let's say. So he was talking about these different experiences in his life in which he used art as communication and what that means for him, how that shows up in his life. And so that's what I mean by thematic. So it's not like one narrative, it's a theme. Yeah. Is Janae answer? Are you typing or something? I
Okay,
can
yes.
see another
I'm
one.
actually going to address someone's question
Okay.
that came up in the chat. It said, should I retake the ACT if I already got a 33 or focus on my essays? I think this is a really good question. First off, in my program, I show you how to do both because I was doing both. So my program, we have live tutoring 3 to 4 times a week. So you come to live tutoring. You can show up like you don't have to come to those sessions every week, but you showed it up to the sessions that are best for your schedule. And then you can get help there to advance your learning. And so what we do is we have our students typically do 30 to 45-minute study sessions every day using the materials in the program. And then a tutor will check in with you daily, like helping you through the problems that you're doing on your own. So like what that would look like is like you wake up on Monday, you have 30 minutes set aside, you check in with your tutor, and then you bring any questions that you have to live tutoring, or you actually text your tutor back and you're like, hey, I didn't know how to do this. And they help you through it in that instant. But what that does is that you'll have time to continue to work on your SAT or ACT score, because what I'm feeling from my personal experience, if you already are at a 33 right now, the potential for you to get a 34 or 35 is very likely with some quick fixes, especially if you're sort of like that was just something that you've sort of already accomplished. Some quick fixes can really up your score. And so I think it depends on the schools that you're applying to always, because you definitely want to see sort of the admission statistics on what the other students are submitting for their scores, but you can do both. And in your situation, it may be best to keep going if you already feel like you're gifted in certain aspects of the ACT. So what's the average SAT score boost for students who use the success system? Great question. We typically see students raise their score between, I would say, anywhere from 150 to 250 points. But I will say that we actually just lifted the like time limit that we had on our program. So now it has lifetime access. So that's students raising their score over like a 10-week basis or like a 12, like 14-week basis, just like working with actually not as much resources as we provide now. So that was like one class a week, 10 to 12 weeks, those are the results. So when you have lifetime access, we literally say the reason we set the program up as we have and call it the success system is because it's a container where your success is inevitable. So you join and we just continue working until you get the result that you want because you have lifetime access, right? So anything that's getting in the way, we get to the core of that, whether that's your thinking and it's your mindset and you're like, I'm a bad test taker, and you can actually come to life coaching every single week with me. That's actually what we do. We have like college coaching, life coaching on Saturdays and Sundays. And then we have like our more core like tutoring during the week. But my point being, when you have lifetime access, those results that are typical for students are completely different because there's no time pressure, right? Like it's not like you are in the course for 12 weeks and you get the boot. When we are in the program, how do we get matched with tutors? Okay, so we have tutors who have different classes throughout the week. So like, for example, during the summer, we're now having like more of our tutoring staff come on and they'll teach different classes. So like, for example, Thomas, like he's a tutor at Vanderbilt. He got a perfect score on the ACT. Like in July, he may have a class on like Thursdays. So every Thursday you can come and he'll be there on Zoom ready to help you. I typically have 2 to 3 classes a week. So then I come and then you can contact whatever tutor you feel most comfortable talking to. But I always check in with all of my students on Mondays. So every student in the program gets a text from me on Monday, like, hey, what's up? How are you doing? How can I serve you this week? And that's how we like roll with the tutoring staff. So you're really getting interaction with everyone.
I can address a essay question. So I saw some people ask about prompts. Someone asked like, should I read the prompts or should I just write the essay? Or should I choose the prompts first or write the essay, then choose the prompt? I think, well, first, depends which kind of essay you're talking about. If we're talking about the common application essay, I think reading the prompts first is a good idea just to like understand like what they're kind of looking for. But the Common App essay prompts are designed to be extremely open-ended. So you don't have to I would not say pick a prompt and then write your essay. I would say focus on what is my essay going to be? What is my story that I want to tell? Then find a prompt that fits that. But I do think you should at least read through them first, just to have that understanding. Yeah. Someone also asked a quick clarification on my college essay course. If it only helps you get started and write the college essay and doesn't include our essay being reviewed and edited. So I wouldn't say it necessarily only helps you get started. It's like that starting prompt. No, it's the whole way. It's the whole way through. It does not include like the personal editing. That's a separate service that you are more than welcome to do as well. But it does give you a lot of really important strategies when it comes to revising your drafts as well. Because I've taken all the things that I've learned from doing all this essay editing and I put it into the course. So you can go through your essay, read all these strategies that I've written down, all these things that like, this is what most people make mistakes about on, and here's how to fix them, and see if your essay is doing that and make those changes to yourself. But if you want me to make those changes, then go ahead and submit an essay under the essay editing tab.
Okay, I'm gonna try to address some of the SAT and ACT questions and then move on to like more general college questions. I just typed out a response to someone that I saw, how does 12-week private tutoring work? I want to clarify that our program doesn't have a time limit. So you have lifetime access to the program. And I actually want to clarify because we actually did used to have like a private tutoring program. And what was happening, especially when COVID started, is that our students, like their test dates were canceled or they'd work with a tutor and it took more time to get a result than like 12 weeks, for example. And in that case, they then didn't have the result that they signed up for tutoring for. And so what we did was create a program where when you sign up, it is inevitable that you get the result that you want because there's no time limit. So instead, a traditional 12-week private tutoring package, which for most test prep companies can be anywhere to $2,000 to $3,000, is like you working with a tutor, sometimes like upwards of like $200 an hour for 12 weeks. And then after that, if you aren't where you want to be, you'd have to repurchase tutoring because your 12-week package is up. So instead, we offer lifetime access in our program so that, you know, say you take a test and you're doing tutoring work up until that, we'll say your test is in August, then after August, if something happened or like something came up or you got sick or you had a family vacation, right, you can still come back to a community that's supporting you with the SAT and ACT and the college stuff because there's no time limit on the program, because like there's no time limit on your success. So there's no time pressure because we're sort of here with you to work through whatever pace you need in order to succeed, especially if you're trying to have a big transformation. So I want to clarify that. For the SAT and ACT, I don't think you have to take them months apart. They are different exams. And I actually think getting them both out of the way quickly can tell you which you're better at. When you're like mid third year, junior year, into becoming a rising senior, you want to focus in on one test because typically one exam you're going to be doing better at, sometimes quantitatively and qualitatively. By quantitatively, I just mean your score is better in the SAT or ACT because of what you're gifted at more, or you may just prefer one test over the other. You just may have a better feeling about that qualitatively. So like for me, I took the SAT and the ACT my junior year, like back to back. My mom signed me up for like one in November and one in December. I guess she hated me or something. But I was in that testing room like a month apart. I think I sat in like the same chair. But I will say like what it did do, like my junior year, I always tell students their junior year, it's honestly best to go through tutoring your junior year for the SAT and ACT so that your senior year, you can only focus on essays. It doesn't matter what you've done thus far. We're here now, right? So now you have the resources that you need, but just general advice. So junior year, I recommend people to get as much data as they can. So taking the SAT and ACT back to back can provide you with the data you need to figure out which test is best for you. I am going to answer the emotionally honest way because I'm a really emotional person. My application for multiple colleges dealt with my experiences bullying, my experiences with racism, my experiences as a Black woman, my grandmother dying, my grandmother being in poverty, my mom overcoming that, like all the things. So like I was just like an open book in my college application. You don't have to like share those things. I want to clarify if it's not coming up naturally for you, but I think authenticity comes from, I guess, what you would like almost like, I guess, say to a friend or someone that you were trying to articulate a story to. And I think actually just finding out what that story is for you is really important. I will say someone sort of asked about how to write about sensitive topics earlier. I think something like financial hardships is fine to write, but whenever you're talking about something like that is heavy, you always want to make sure that it is intertwined into an essay that has like an up level or like what it taught you or like how it impacted you. So when I talked about my race and I talked about racism, I talked about sort of how now I am like very comfortable in my experiences as a Black woman, or like what the things that I went through taught me, or like what my bullying experiences taught me. Or if I talked about in my pancake essay in Dyllen's course, which you should read, when I mentioned my race and the stereotypes that I faced as a Black woman, I mentioned those as something that I always experience and how it now impacts the way that I engage with other people. So when admissions officers reading that, they're not like, oh, like, not that you can ever be like complaining about racism, but like it's not like, oh, she's just like, you know, complaining. It's like, oh, okay, her experiences as a Black woman have shaped the way that she engages with other people, because now she doesn't stereotype other people because she's experienced stereotypes, right? So that whenever I meet new people, I don't force stereotypes on anyone. And that's the message I was trying to get across. So if you're bringing in hardship, you can first start by thinking, whether it's your grandmother dying, you're talking about financial hardship, you're talking about something that's very emotionally vulnerable, you can start by trying to tell them, like figuring out the message that you want to articulate about why it's important for them to know this, and then understanding how whatever heavy you're bringing into the essay contributes to that narrative.
Yeah, I absolutely second everything Janae just said. Also, a thing to keep in mind as you go through this process is the college admissions officers are also trying to see like how you will be able to succeed at their school. So do keep this in mind, and it can get a little bit sensitive maybe when talking about certain mental health things. Like you can totally be honest, and so many people do, and vulnerable in that way, but just keep that in mind. So always, like Janae was saying, show the positive side of it too, like what steps you are currently taking, how you were able to deal with certain things, the new mindset that you're developing. Those are ways to help with that.
Yeah, exactly. So like, for example, like a sob, I don't like to say sob stories because I think people need to tell stories in the way that they need to. But if we were talking about college admissions and it was like, okay, like someone telling something hard and you were like, I went through this and I cried every day and I didn't want to eat and I was depressed and I stayed in my bed all day. Like that's kind of like, you know, like we don't want to focus too much on that, right? Instead, you could be like, I had depression my junior year, but I used sort of as an outlet of emotional expression my art. And now, like, I now use that passion like saved me from one of the darkest times of my life. And it's now influenced what I want to study. And it's now influenced the way that I want to impact people. Like you see how like you brought in something heavy into the essay, but you didn't let it define the essay. Right? Like you very clearly mentioned the connection between your passion and maybe a mental health issue that you went through or something tragic that happened, but that's not the point of the essay. The point of the essay is why that impacted you, and you don't let it define the essay, right? Because you integrate it so well into the story that you want to tell. So I think someone DM'd me about how to not make that a sob story. So I think hopefully I answered that. I want to make sure I didn't miss any SAT or ACT questions in particular. I saw someone say that they got a C their freshman year. Girl, let that go. Like for real. I promise it'll be okay.
Stanford
Apply to
doesn't even look at your freshman grades.
apply to your top schools, because actually you never want to be in a position at the end of your senior year where you're like, man, I wonder what would have happened if I applied to that school. Just apply. Like the worst thing that can happen is what will happen if you don't apply, which is that you don't go. Right? Like if you don't apply, you're not going to be able to go. And then if you apply, worst case scenario is that you don't go. Right?
You
Best
miss
case
all the
scenario-
shots you don't take. Or you
Yeah.
don't shoot. Is that how the phrase goes?
And what I will also say, whenever we have mistakes and we have to learn about how to articulate those in a way that, not that you're even going to have to articulate why you got to see like your freshman year, but if you wanted to talk about it and you wanted to talk about it on your application, you're growing from that experience. You're learning how to talk about your failures in a way that contributed to your future successes. I fail all the freaking time. Like, but I know how to talk about it so that I turn it around. I've had people directly ask me things in interviews about times that I failed, right? And if I didn't have the skill of learning how to articulate how I grew from that, I would have stumbled. So use this as an opportunity to learn how to articulate that and apply. Please apply.
Oh my God, failing is so fun. Like failing is a good thing, guys. I want you guys to know that. Like I used to play a game with myself after senior year of high school. I was like, let's see how many times I can fail or like embarrass myself or do something wrong. Because then I learned so much and I was like, wow, look at me growing as a person. Like this is okay. This is natural. This is how you become a better person. So there are a lot of, oh, sorry. There are a lot of big questions asked about a theme in college applications and a spike. I want both Janae and I to answer this one. It's a little hard for me to answer this question. Also, I do have a video on this if anyone's curious. I talk about like creating a through line rather than like a theme. So I don't think like you have to make every single one of your activities the same thing or like about one thing, like computer science. I did this coding club. I coded this, I coded that. Like that can be you for sure, but they also are looking for people who have skills in multiple areas because that's obviously important and that's how you become I don't want to say well-rounded because there's like stigma around the word in college admissions area, but more well-rounded person in terms of, what we do in one area affects what we do in another area, as we've been talking about, so you can become a more evolved person by having those skills in different things. However, yes, I have gone to some webinars and heard a lot of other admissions talk that like for the top schools, like you got to have a spike, blah, blah, blah. I think it definitely helps. I think passion projects are huge and can be a big game changer. My application, like I truly don't think that I had like a really strong spike or theme or strong, super, super duper strong extracurriculars, but I scored a 1 in the extracurriculars category. I don't know how. I literally do not. If you want to see my application, that is also widely available on YouTube. I don't know if I answered that question pretty well, but Janae, do you want to jump in there?
Yeah. How do I craft a theme for my college apps? So actually, like when I work with students individually for college work and college consulting, I actually think I saw some of my like actual college consulting clients on here. So hey y'all, if you're here still, but like one exercise that I literally do every single student is I ask sort of like, how do you identify yourself? What are you passionate about? What do you do in your free time? And we just journal on those. We journal on those for like a solid week. And what it'll help you figure out is you'll start to see themes among your passions, your extracurriculars, what you want to do, how you define yourself, right? Like, although I have a stronger identity now than I did like when I was your age, like when I was 16, 17, applying to college, I kind of knew like, hey, I kind of like entrepreneurship. Like I really kind of like teaching people. I don't know what that is yet, but that's something that I like to do. And then from there, I formed my themes. So then my themes were education, entrepreneurship, and service. Found I did a lot of service activities, and the service was really big for me. Education obviously was the core of my business, and I also always loved teaching. That's like why I'm still here. Like I could literally be here till like 10 p.m. Like I could just answer questions all day because I just love talking with students and engaging with students. And then I was an entrepreneur at my core. Like my first little business when I was like 8. It was like Janae's Jazzy Jewelry. And I had this little business plan and I like wrote it out on paper. My mom and I actually found it like 2 years ago and she started like bawling. She was like, this is what you're made to do. But basically that kind of like that identity, like that core became a theme for me. But I think journaling on those questions is essential. And as Dyllen was mentioning, as you're going throughout the process, doing this work before you even hit the pencil on paper or the fingers on the keyboard when it comes to typing your essays, because what will happen if you like go into the writing process without doing the work on your themes and like figuring out what type of college application you want to have is you'll just come across as being really scattered, right? And it'll make the college writing process a lot harder. And so that's why I would do that work with my students up front. So that's why I think like everything that you hit on, like your personality, your values, your experiences, like those go into developing your themes.
Definitely. I think, sorry, I want to add on a little bit. Scattered, that word that you use, like I think that's a better word for what they don't want versus well-rounded. I know other college admissions people will be like, they don't want you well-rounded. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if I completely agree with all of that, but maybe they don't necessarily want you scattered all over the place. Like, I think a lot of, like I was saying, like things inform other things. Because I did art, because I did math, for example, I was able to think more analytically when doing my art, my graphic design in the computer, and the way I was like making the angles and the shapes and all of that stuff. So like creating those connections is really important. I have a video on this. I'm going to put it in the chat as Janae answers whatever other question she wants to answer.
Yeah. Let's see here. I think we'll do probably like 2 or 3 more questions. If anyone wants to come off mute, by the way, if you didn't send your question in. I think Valencia just raised her hand. Go ahead.
Am I audible?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. First of all, thank you guys so much. I really enjoyed seeing all of you guys. Okay, so my question is, so I'm an international student from Indonesia, and I think, well, I use my national curriculum, so we don't have AP classes or IB classes, and I think sometimes I kind of wonder if that kind of put me on disadvantage when it comes to kind of like academically, like because I guess academically is not that rigorous. Do you guys have like any kind of like advice in terms of like improving that, or do you guys think like maybe scoring really high on my standardized tests, so like ACT or SAT, can really like put that into like that academic side away, or is there any other ways to kind of deal with that? Thank you.
Yeah. Of course, definitely. I can take this one. What happens when you apply is that your school will submit something that's called a school profile, which will detail the rigor of the classes that are offered. And so what colleges look for is you pushing that rigor to the bounds. What that means is if your school only offers honors classes, you're taking all the honors classes you can. If your school does offer AP and IB classes, you're taking all the AP and IB classes that you can. But colleges won't penalize you for what your school doesn't offer. But what you can do is provide them with evidence that you are pushing the bounds. So what that may look like, I don't know if in your community, like you have a community college that you can like take college courses at, but like that's what I did in my high school when something wasn't offered on an AP or IB level, because I was showing them that I was pushing the bounds of like as much rigor as I could do, right? Like I'm taking the hardest classes I can, right? I'm pushing myself as much as I can. And as you mentioned with standardized tests as well, that will also help provide more quantitative evidence that you can handle the academic load of highly competitive schools. Because as I mentioned, in that academic category, they're looking at the courses that you're taking, they're looking at your transcript, and they're looking at your scores. And so if you can't send scores for AP or IB tests, if you can send scores for SAT and ACT exams, then they're going to be able to see that you can obviously achieve at that level, right? So take a deep breath, because your school profile will show them that you obviously don't have AP or IB classes at your school, but then just take it into like your responsibility to push as much as you can and like achieve a sense of rigor at the level that you can, and do as much as you can do in order to provide them with as much evidence that you belong at that school. Okay. And I also think I see Tobechi. Am I pronouncing your name right? If not, I'm sorry. I'll correct
You
myself.
actually got it like correct.
Woo!
Thank you for that. And I had a question about like reflecting on our life experiences to like put it inside of our essay. So do you have any tips on reflecting effectively?
Yeah. Dyllen, I can take this one, or if you want to, you can hop in.
Well, first, I think it's a very loaded question. You know what I mean? I feel like all of the what am I trying to say? In my college essay course, like I walk you through a step-by-step process of like how to do those things. And I honestly do a lot of like probing you with questions, like as we've been saying, like how did this well, okay, what did you learn from this? How did you change your mindset, or how was your mindset changed? How do you think about the world now? How does this apply to other areas of your life? Like asking those kinds of questions can help you get even more reflective. And I have a lot of those questions in the course. And also when I do essay editing, I ask you a lot of those questions.
Yeah. And in the success system, as I mentioned, we have like weekly college coaching and like life talks, almost, if you will, where students like just kind of come on Zoom with me and we just like go through questions like this, just like we're having a Q&A here. I'm just like, okay, like what's up? And you guys can ask all the questions that you want. So this comes up a lot. And what I typically tell students as they go into their junior and senior year, when I get this question from clients of mine, I give 2 tips. One, start like journaling or like have some sort of reflection process. It doesn't even have to be like every day, but it could just be like, hey, like what did I learn about myself this month? Especially if you're doing experiences that are pushing the bounds. Like if you're an internship, if you're in a club, if you're doing something new this summer, if you're starting a new extracurricular, check in with yourself to see if you like it. Like maybe you hate it. That's something you learned about yourself. Maybe you like it. Maybe that's something that you want to explore in the future. But sort of develop a regimen of asking yourself questions and checking in with yourself. And then as you're getting older and you're at a position where you're now going to have to write into essays, center yourself in all of your activities. What that means is instead of using a passive tone, like my club does this at school, find out what you do in the club. Find out what you do in like whatever you want to talk about. Like whenever you're thinking about an experience, I just want you to like put I in front of it and then figure out what you want to say. So I actually was working with one of my students about this, where she was telling me about a club that she had, and she was telling me about what the club does at her school. And I asked her what she did. And she sort of told me some of the parts that she had in the club, but I could tell it wasn't like natural for her. And then I articulated like 2 examples, which I'll do now, where if I was in an interview or if I was writing an essay, I could be like, my club at school did this, and we helped students in education and health, and we put on activities, blah, blah, blah. Or you could say, I was an ambassador for this club. I helped create the curriculum that built it from the ground up. And I was an alumni coordinator who coordinated with students who'd graduated and then helped them prepare talks that we then broadcast to the student community. And through that work, I learned leadership skills. And from those leadership skills, I also was able to impact the student community and push forward my passion of education, right? That latter half is such a more impactful statement, right? And that's going to come across in an essay as more powerful too, right? And the reason I got good at that is because I know how to center myself in all of my activities. I can tell you about what the team did, and I can also tell you about what I did, right? And so getting into that mindset takes a bit of work. It's a bit of a shift sometime, especially when you're 16 or 17, you haven't maybe thought about what impact you're having specifically in all the activities that you're doing. So just begin to meditate on that and think about it in any aspect. Because then when you have to write about it in your essays, it'll come a lot easier to you and you can articulate your impact more clearly. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. Thank you so much.
Of course. Awesome. Okay, we'll do one last question. And then I'm gonna go eat some Panda Express.
Hello.
Hello?
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you for this meeting, which is very much needed for myself, for sure. Which is weird to be talking. Dyllen, of course, I see on YouTube, and I was like, okay, this is like live, and she's responding.
Live and in person.
But one of the things that comes to my mind is like overthinking. I tend to I love writing, and whenever I write, like I don't stop. But I feel like now when it comes to like this is college, like this is an application, I tend to like overthink it to where like you think of the cliches or you think of the answers, like what should I do to impress them? It's not like, oh, you get a grade and you go. This is like you go or you don't go to this college. So what advice do you have for people that overthink a lot?
What if you were just impressive? Like, what if you were the impressive student that was writing an application for why they should accept you because they'd be crazy if they didn't? Like, that's a hard perspective to cultivate, but one that I had throughout my college application process, because I was like, okay, I've done great things in my community. Like, I'm not perfect, like there's probably people with better things like in all categories than myself, but like, I'm going to tell my story and I'm going to tell a story that I'm proud of. And I would focus more on that than like a admissions result, because that can freak you out. Right? What if your main focus was just like putting your best foot forward, right? Putting out an application that you're going to be proud of, putting out an application that in the springtime, you look back on, no matter what school said to you, you're like, you know what? I was a great applicant. And if they turned me down, that's on them. That's what I thought. There's there are schools that I was like, you're crazy. Like, I mean, I'm sure there's probably like a physicist that got in like in my place or something like that who's doing amazing things. But I was just very confident in my story, right? And I articulated that, and that will come across to some school. And so I think when it comes to overthinking, like that just like getting the messy draft down, like Dyllen was saying, is really, really helpful. And then just like becoming confident in yourself and your story, where I know a lot of students go into it, they're like, how can I impress schools? Like, it's a two-way street. Like, you're also impressive.
Oh my
like,
God.
You also want to be like, oh, do I want to go to this? Like, is this school going to help me?
They're auditioning for you too.
Exactly. Right. So you bring something to the table and you're a powerful student. And when you believe in your core that you're going to change the world or have an impact on whatever community or field you want to go into, and that you're a force to be reckoned with and you are talented, that will come across in your application, right? And that is what will impress colleges. And you're just sharing the story. You're just telling them why you're awesome, right? And if you can develop that mindset for everyone who's listening, which you all should do because you're here 2 hours after we started this call. So I know you guys are freaking fantastic. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Then don't get in your own head about it, right? Should be like, if I was an impactful student, what would I want to write? That's what I would ask myself before I sat down to write.
Janae, that was beautiful.
I'm glad we got that on recording.
That was beautiful. I also just want to add on that once again, so important to focus on you, because I'm reading a college admissions book right now, learning about the dirty secrets. Colleges have different priorities. Colleges have a lot of hidden priorities that they're not necessarily telling students. So there's only so much you can control in that thing. So I don't think you should focus on what do they want to hear from me? How do I make myself best for them? Like, focus on you and telling your story. Because like at the end of the day, like sometimes maybe you're just not the right fit for a school, or they needed a person who fit this very specific category and you weren't that category. Like, there's so many other factors that come into it, which is why all you can do really, and what will benefit you the most, is focusing on yourself and your own story.
Okay, Luke, I applied for Stanford's TED Talk and they rejected me. So we're gonna apply again.
Oh my God, really?
It's gonna happen. Yeah, I did. And I was like, okay. But once again, guys, right? Like, I could have been like, oh my gosh, like, what do I need to say so that Stanford is like, oh my gosh, like they need to like accept me for my TED. I was like, here's what I'm gonna talk about. They rejected me. And I was like, that was silly. That was a silly move. You know why? Because I would have given an awesome TED Talk. And, you made a mistake. I'll be here again next year. But I mean, I would have given me the shot, right? So it's like that. Exactly. That's their
loss. That's their loss.
That's their loss. Exactly. Silly gooses. That's exactly the mindset that I would have, where you're just moving forward with one like question that I think is just like very good to center yourself if you're overthinking. It's like, what action can I take today to make myself successful 1 year from now? Right? I highly recommend, like for me, if I was in your shoes, it would be signing up to get in Dyllen's community and signing up to get in my community, giving myself the support that I needed over the next year so that I could like get help with all this mind drama every single day, right? That would be like an action step for me. And then tomorrow I would ask myself the same question. But that way, when you look back, you're not going to have any regrets because you were taking action in that moment to help your future self. Right? When I wake up in the morning, I build my business from a place of who do I want to be a year from now? Right? So when I look back, I'm always like, I had my own back. Right? Because I was taking action no matter what happens, no matter like who rejects me or like if whatever, like I'm like, I put my best foot forward. Like there are companies that rejected me during my internship cycle. And once again, I was like, that was silly. I don't know what's wrong. You must be crazy, but it's whatever. But at the end of the day, it wasn't a big deal because I put my best foot forward. I did everything. I put everything on the line. So just focus on putting everything on the line. Focus on taking action so that you don't look back and ask yourself, is there anything else that I could have done wrong? Because regret is not something you want to feel when you're done with the college application process. That's why we have these resources for you now so that you don't. Right? Like my main job, my main goal is to make students feel the most confident that they can throughout the SAT and ACT process and the college process so that when they look back, they're satisfied no matter what. Right? And I have students who get into their dream schools and I have students who go through the process and they don't get into their dream schools, but they're still satisfied. You know why? It's because they did everything that they could. And it's because they became a better person going throughout the process. And they became a better person because they invested in themselves and they took a chance on themselves. Because that's what matters, right? And then that's the person that they go off to college as. And they are driving impact so much more so than someone who was just like, oh, like I got in Harvard because I just got in, right? And they didn't work hard to do it. So that is just what I would focus on. I'd focus on action.
So you guys understand why I love Janae so much now? Like,
I'm telling you guys,
my life. Janae's
Telling you
changing my
guys,
life.
I'm here every week. The
I'll
people
be here all
inside,
week.
the
Promise.
people inside my community, they get access to my random motivational speeches every week.
I love
I'm here
it.
with like typically a cup of cold brew coffee to keep me up, and my room that gets creepily dark at night, and it's fine. And we do it. Yes, literally the best way to end this masterclass. Okay, so here's what's gonna happen. For anyone who's watching the recording after, this is also helpful. There will be links sent out. Hashtag today's cool. Thanks, guys. There will be links sent out with applications for the success system for myself, and a link for Dyllen's course as well after this call. We'll also send the recording out in 24 hours. There is a 48-hour time-sensitive bonus for applications on the success system, because after you apply and your enrollment link is sent out to you, when you enroll within 48 hours, there's a 100% money back guarantee. So it's risk-free. So that's sort of the time-sensitive bonus you need to be aware of for those who are watching the recording. Sorry, I'm reading the chat. For those who are watching the recording, something you should know. And we will send out the recording to you guys. And it has been our pleasure to talk with you. And we're so excited that you were able to come and learn and conquer the college admissions process. I love that phrase, Leah.
Let's go.
Of course. We love you guys. Thank you so much for coming. Have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming.